What is up, investors? Jason here. So, the crypto market is back in the red. Bitcoin back under $30,000. We have the altcoins moving down significantly. We have a lot more fear over in the crypto market. This is coming after some news of inflation rates being at a 40-year high. We also have the S&P at the lowest level that it's been since January. So a lot going on over in the investing space and a lot of fear going on in general, and definitely affecting the market a lot. Now, with this extra added fear of inflation, and we already had fear of inflation, but 40-year high is pretty significant. Now, what's also being affected at this moment is we have the housing market. We have a huge housing market slowdown right now, where we're seeing a lot of houses still very high in their price, but we're not seeing the demand there for those houses. So we're seeing mortgage rates and things go up, and we're seeing buyers now start backing out after they start initiating the buy process, because the interest rate keeps going up. It's very unpredictable of what's going to happen. So we're just piling more things on top of more things and just adding more fear and more fear. And the crypto market just seems like one that is going to take a lot more heat. It's not like 2021 anymore, where the price of Bitcoin can drop to $30,000, go up to $60,000, drop down again to $30,000 and drop back up to $69,000. So we're now just really hanging out at the price of $30,000 or below it right now. Now, a lot of this fear is adding in to some analysts say that the price of Bitcoin could possibly be going to $20,000. Now, I don't really agree with that. I think that the price of Bitcoin has probably already seen its bottom most likely. I think that the price of $25,000 was the one that made sense to me. And seeing how much we have been moving along sideways with the price of Bitcoin, I think that the price of where we're at right now is most likely around the price that's where it has the most support. Holding above that line of $28,000 is one that I think that Bitcoin is very strong. Now I'm going to continue rambling on a little bit more here. So as I do, please at some point be sure to smash, destroy, annihilate that like button to help me out with the algorithm, and subscribe if you have not already. Now, when we look at this falling wedge that Bitcoin has been in since the beginning of April to now, even though it's been trending sideways, it's still within this falling wedge that it's been in since the beginning of April, where the price of Bitcoin just started dropping off pretty significantly from a price of around $45,000 or above $45,000, and just continued dropping off, doing some sideways trading and then falling even more. Now what we've been seeing it doing since the second week of May all through now into the second week of June, what we're seeing is that Bitcoin had just been trading sideways that whole time, but it's still within that falling wedge. Actually, if we were to draw trend lines and see what the Bitcoin has been doing during this time, it's still hugging that falling wedge. So it's possible that Bitcoin could go down more, and it can continue in this wedge that it's been in, as we're seeing. As we're seeing it get very close to breaking through this wedge, but right now it's still within that falling wedge, and this is one of the things that makes me a bit fearful on the price of Bitcoin. Even though I'm bullish on Bitcoin in the long run, I'm fearful that maybe Bitcoin is going to continue dropping more now with this extra added fear, and maybe we might see Bitcoin drop below that $28,000 support. That $28,000 support is one that is helping Bitcoin stay above to where it's at right now. Now, if it falls below that, then I think it's going to be a lot more bearish. That's where I think we could see Bitcoin fall below that $25,000. And then who knows what can happen then? And we can see Bitcoin possibly going to that $20,000 price that the analysts are saying, or, even lower, which I don't want to get that fearful. But I think Bitcoin has already reached its bottom, and I would like to be optimistic and think that Bitcoin is just going to continue trading sideways, and then eventually it's going to be out of this wedge that it's been in, and it might be trending up at some point, because there's also a lot of things that are priced into it, in my opinion. Now, until very recently, the stock market, the bond market, and any other markets out there didn't matter to Bitcoin about what they did. Bitcoin was its own thing, and it would either go up or down by itself, by the investor interest. It didn't matter how investors viewed everything else. But the asset class of Bitcoin has risen over these last 2 years, and it's now running more in tandem with what the stock market and the bond market is doing. And so now that we know that the next rate hike will be coming soon, according to this article here from CNBC that was just recently posted, it says that the Fed will raise rates in the week ahead, but what Chair Powell says may matter most. Now, what's got things all crazy right now within the Fed is that the data from the month of May has been analyzed, and looking at it, they're seeing that the inflation rate is much higher than they expected, and it's going to take a lot more to actually get the inflation to calm down a bit. So they need to raise rates much higher and faster. So what they could be looking at is possibly raising the rates by 75 basis points. And a rate hike like that could be something that could be just too aggressive, and it could really possibly affect the economy. And this could be something that could possibly send us into a recession. And that's a lot of the fear that is currently going on at this moment. Now, in the bond market, Treasury yields rose after the hotter inflation report, but the yield curve also flattened. That means that shorter duration yields like the 2-year rose closer to longer duration yields like the 10-year. On Friday, the 2-year yield reached 3.06%, and the spread was only 10 basis points. If the 2-year were to move above the 10-year yield, the curve would be inverted, which is a recession signal. Now, seeing how a lot of these stocks are in the red and the indexes are in the red, and looking over at Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, ticker symbol VTI, looking at how much VTI has gone down, which is the entire stock market put into an ETF, looking at how much it has gone down in 2022, it pretty much is still around at levels that it was back in January of 2021. So we've already wiped out so many gains in the stock market this year, and we're at the levels of where we were at back in January of 2021. Now, keep in mind here that what we got in 2021 was a lot of extreme accelerated growth within the stock market. But what if now, since we are back at those levels of where we're at the beginning of the year, what if instead we're possibly seeing an overreaction to everything? What if we're to follow the trend of VTI and look at it and see how we had these corrections in 2015, 2016, 2018, 2020? What if this correction is a correction from overreaction? So that's what I'm thinking we're seeing. I think everything is priced in. We have the interest rates, we have inflation, we have all that already priced in. We're staying along the levels right now. We have support at the level of where we were at on January 1st, 2021. That is where we're staying with support right now. So that's what I think that's going on right now. I think we are recovering from an overreaction. So when everything goes back to normal, when we get inflation back on track, when we get interest rates back on track, yeah, it's terrible that interest rates are going to raise. But what those low interest rates did was they pumped a lot of cash into these companies, into the stock market with these low interest rates, where it didn't really make sense for them to even worry about paying them back because the debt was so cheap. We saw this large growth. Now, hey, you can't borrow money now. You're going to have to tighten you're going to have to now tighten your balance sheet now, is basically what the Fed is saying to these companies, these large corporations. You're going to have to tighten your balance sheet. That's the overreaction that we're seeing. And I don't think it's going to affect Bitcoin in the long run. I think that, yeah, the stock market is going to go back to making sense. I think that the housing market is going to go back to making sense. And I think that Bitcoin is going to eventually go back to being Bitcoin. So seeing how Bitcoin is consolidating as much as it is, we don't usually see it trade sideways and consolidate this tightly. So that's another reason why I think that everything is still priced in. Even with knowing that we're going to get the interest rate hikes, we know that. We know what to expect. And even with all this fear out there, the price of Bitcoin is actually still trending trending upwards so slightly, which you probably don't even notice. So it's very close to breaking out of this falling wedge. A couple days, it should do such a thing. And even looking at it in the past, back in June of 2021, where the price of Bitcoin was trading sideways and consolidating a lot, it would always go down to around the levels that it's at this time. It would always touch these levels and then work its way back up in its little correction that it would have. And what we did see with Bitcoin was that sometime in July, the price of Bitcoin did eventually start moving up. So hopefully that's also going to be the case. Now we get some sort of history repeats itself, because just like as we did see Bitcoin's price drop in May, we saw the same thing happen in May of 2021. So if history does repeat itself, it can be very similar to such price movements like it was back then. But who knows? Anything can, of course, happen. But anyways, I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts and opinions about what's going on in the crypto market. Now, for myself, I'm very bullish. Even if the price of Bitcoin is to drop a bit more, that doesn't scare me. I think that, but I personally do think that we've already seen the bottom. And I think that as far as things go with the stock market and the crypto market, I think that everything already is priced in. I think that all the fear that we're going to get is already priced in the market. We saw just way too much of an overreaction in 2021, and that's what we're also correcting from. That was a crazy time. So anyways, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about all this. So please like, share, comment, subscribe. New content coming out all the time. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and I will see you all in the next one coming very soon.